the strength that they need to go through this process. Because the process, the world that we're in, it doesn't make sense to somebody on the outside. And when you're thrust into this world and you have to hear from us about continuances and court dates and have to listen to lawyers and and it's difficult. So it's a long process, but they need the community support, and they've got it, and it's been incredible. And it's going to help them, but it's going to need to be sustained over the next couple years. I, again, want to just reiterate how professional and really dedicated the detectives were that worked on this particular case. Detective Vargas and Detective Wilson led the charge, and I mean, I know a lot of the details. Of course, they know the details, but between them and the crime scene technicians that worked the crime scene and their digital forensic people who were able to dump phones and look at computers and do all the digital analysis. And I'll tell you, those are the unsung heroes, the people that the crime scene technicians, the forensics. When we go to court, that is sometimes the most compelling evidence that we have. And they work in the background, and they don't look for attention, they don't seek attention, but they really deserve to be recognized, because when you have a crime scene like we had in this case, it's never anything simple, but it's complicated. So it's important that they have experts that do it and work out these cases. And this whole team at Hernando County Sheriff's Office did a great job. So with that, I believe I'm going to turn it over to Sheriff Nienhuis if he has any comments, and then I'll answer any questions that you guys might have.
Thank you, sir. Very quickly, our state attorney here in the 5th Judicial Circuit is a pleasure to work with. We understand that we have the same goal. Sometimes we look at things a little bit differently, but one thing that we try to really push down to the lowest levels in the sheriff's office is it's our job, if we really want to see justice served, to give the state attorney a prosecutable case. And that, as he said, that starts as soon as we get the call and realize that it's a serious crime. We are often on the phone with the duty attorney and sometimes the attorney that's going to be assigned to the particular case. If we know it, like in a homicide case, it's usually a handful of 1 or 2 attorneys that are going to be the primary attorneys, and we start going over with them what we've got. So they're in on the ground floor, so they can help make the decisions going forward, what we need to do, what we have yet to do. But I will tell you, as he said, the work starts in earnest the minute we get the call, and the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes, it cannot be put into words. Things that are often the most mundane things you can think of, knocking on doors and talking to people, walking in your neighborhood, going and visiting businesses and asking if they know anything. Sometimes, and in this case particular, it really breaks a case wide open, and it gives you the evidence you need to focus in on a particular person, and that's what happened here. But as Mr. Gladson alluded to, the amount of work that goes on up to the arrest is just the tip of the iceberg. What goes on after that, interviewing people and doing forensic downloads, digital downloads, and doing examination of physical evidence that's obtained at the scene and at other places, goes on behind the scenes for hours, sometimes hundreds of hours, to get to the point where it's a case that the state attorney feels comfortable bringing to the grand jury. And this case, obviously, citizens in our community that are assigned to the grand jury felt this case was compelling enough to charge this individual with first-degree murder, which is not something that we enjoy doing, but it is certainly important to get justice for the family, because anytime anybody's life is taken, we don't stop going until we do everything we possibly can to identify a suspect. And when it's a young person, particularly a juvenile, in this case a young lady, it definitely ratchets up the amount of urgency that these gentlemen feel when they're investigating that case. So to hear that we have given the state attorney a good prosecutable case is certainly music to our ears, because that's our goal, is to get justice for those victims and for the family, obviously, who have to suffer with this. No parent should ever go through the trauma of losing a child, and unfortunately we see it too often. So, but I want to thank the state attorney for the kind words, and I thank you for the partnership, because as you well know, it is not that way in every judicial circuit. And it doesn't really matter whose fault it is, but the bottom line is we have to work together, and I am so thrilled that we have a state attorney that is focused on getting justice, particularly in these serious cases. So thank you for the time. Yes, sir. And thanks to the detectives, as always. They deserve all the credit. So.
Take a couple questions if you have any.
Question. So we're talking about first degree premeditated murder. We're also talking about teen dating violence. So, you know, when our viewers watch this tonight, they're going to be, I'm sure, a million questions are going to spark. Is there anything, obviously you can't get into the details, that you can say to sort of connect those dots for us to understand sort of how we got to this point?
Sure. I can say this much. The person that we've indicted was an ex-boyfriend, and we do have evidence of what I think could be described as somewhat of a dysfunctional relationship, where some of these issues that I kind of touched on arose. So, like I said earlier, it's important for parents to be involved with their children, to talk to them about if you see them going down the path where there's a boyfriend that's extremely jealous or possessive or snooping around or something like that, you know, be aware of that, because those are signs that somebody's either not mature enough to have a relationship or is about to have a dysfunctional one. So that's pretty much what I can say.
It was ex-boyfriend at the time?
Not exactly at the time. It was before.
So boyfriend.
Yeah. I'll say this much: there was still contact, but it was an ex-boyfriend.
You mentioned sort of the role of phones, computers, knocking on doors, and talking to business owners, residents. Just sort of, can you kind of, what role do those play in this case?
I'll answer it generally. They were vital. You leave a lot of digital footprints and fingerprints on all kinds of stuff that you do on your phone. So when someone's either thinking about doing something or planning to do something or has done something, there's often evidence that they leave behind that can be located through search warrants and things like that.
I think a couple of weeks ago, we had a press conference with you, Sheriff, and we had mentioned, you know, first degree murder. So is this sort of like the formal official announcement? Like, is that?
This is it. Yep. So given his age, he could get sentenced to life in prison, but in Florida there is a review period now of 25 years if you do get a life sentence. So there'll be a review, and in those review hearings, the court will look at the maturity of the child, the nature of the crime, all these different factors, and decide whether or not a release is appropriate.
He's being charged as an adult, correct?
He will be transferred to adult court, yes, as an adult. We're charging him as an adult. He's going to be in adult court. It's an adult crime. When you're a juvenile and you commit an adult crime, you get charged as an adult.
And yes, can you just shed light on what happens next? Like, where do you go from here?
Frankly, as the sheriff alluded to earlier, the work's not going to stop, but the public-facing stuff like this is going to. The family's going to be able to be notified of any court dates and things like that, but when you've got a charge of first-degree murder, you're looking at, you know, to be frank, a year and a half, 2 years before a case can get to trial. Depositions are going to be taken, those kinds of things. So it'll be a lot of notices to the family, a lot of contact between our victim advocates and the family. And, you know, they've indicated, and rightly so, they want to participate in everything. And I think that's part of the healing process. It's also important that they want to stay involved because, as you know, if you want something to get done and you want information, often you have to do it yourself, and they want to be involved, and we want to maintain that relationship with them.
I just have one last question.
Sure.
You know, anybody who's not familiar with the legal process, and you know, we just usually hear, hey, this person got charged, here's the legal from there. Can you explain what happened today with the indictment and how that has to happen with this specific charge?
Well, to be charged with first-degree murder, you have to go to a grand jury. Most of the other cases we have, 99% of them, we can charge them by what's called information, where we can swear that they committed the crime, and then the information is the charging document. But for capital cases in Florida, you have to go to a grand jury. So you have to get, as the sheriff said earlier, a grand jury is convened and sits for 6 months. And during that 6-month period of time, as cases come up that need to be presented, that same group of grand jurors come in, hear evidence, and make a decision. And that's really all I can tell you. That's what happened. Grand juries operate in secret, and what happens in there is a secret, and it always is a secret. So it's just the result is an indictment in this case.
These guys were working feverishly to get that monitor to work. Can you share with us what you were going to show today?
I can. It was the sheriff's star and our seal, so it wasn't anything. We had talked about whether we wanted to have some references to the victim, but you know, this is not the right. The family wants privacy, and so we switched to the star and the seal, and then that didn't work. So, you guys, if you don't have any other questions, we appreciate you coming out. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming out. Appreciate it.
Thank you.